Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I am here today with Katie Krimitos. Katie Krimitos is a mom, a wife, adventurer, podcaster, seeker, and change maker. She's committed to brightening the light of women around the world through her work under the Women's Meditation Network, guided meditation podcasts and resources created for those who identify as women so they can use the tool of meditation to know themselves and consciously create lives they love. She has 8 podcasts in her network: meditation for women, sleep meditation for women, morning meditation for women, sleep sounds, water and nature sounds, uh, ambient sounds, daily affirmations, meditation for women, and sleep meditation for women, 3 hours. I have personally fallen asleep listening to these guided meditations because they are so calming, so de-stressing, so relaxing, speaking goodness and light into your heart, mind, and soul. She's a writer at heart. She has a soft spot for animals and Mother Nature, loves a good margarita, and treasures the job of raising her 2 girls. And I've had Katie on the podcast before. We'll list it in the show notes. It was an excellent episode. I love this one even more because we have changed so much. We have grown together. We have evolved our networks for women. We are so aligned. And this all happened through the worst of times. So we're talking about not letting your circumstances dictate what you make out of your life and doing what you were born to do versus doing the status quo or what you feel like you should do, aligning with your heart's message and what it's speaking to you, and going after the dreams that God placed in your heart, and realizing that most of the time we're thinking too small and that we are capable of these dreams that are being placed in our heart, or they wouldn't be there in the first place. So follow the wind and the sails and set sail, because, as they say, that is what ships are designed for, right? And so just think about creating from that space and realizing the things you're thinking about, they're there for a reason, and that they're not too small, and that they could be the coolest things ever invented if you would just have the faith and the belief to actually take the leap into them. So today was beyond, oh, it was such a great show. I hated to go, but I actually have to go now because I always do this after the show. So I hope you guys enjoy this so much. Make sure to check out the gratitude giveaway that Katie has. And without further ado, we're going to leap into this episode with the one, the only, adorable Katie Krimitos. I am so excited to welcome back Katie Krimitos to the Sisterhood of Sweat today. Welcome, Katie.
Linda, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
It was such a good time that you came on last, and it was, I want to say, on the eve of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Like I had just spoken at Podfest and met you,
Mhm.
and I think, we don't know for sure because it was at the beginning, but my husband and I came home not feeling well,
Yeah.
and had no taste or smell for about 3 weeks. So I may have had COVID. I don't know for sure. But that was about the extent of it. And then the world went crazy.
Yeah.
And it was a rough time, which we're still not completely out of. And I just want to talk a little bit about that time because I know everybody out there can relate to going through something during COVID, or learning something, or
Yeah.
changing something. What did you learn, and what did you change?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, like everyone, it was a huge moment, right? Like that February, March of 2020 was this huge moment of like, boom, things are changing. And it was very sudden. and then also very deep, right? So for us, what that meant, what you mentioned Podfest, my husband Chris runs Podfest, one of the largest podcasting conferences, and the conference itself was the very last weekend in February, and I think even coming into like March 1st or something like that. And he, up until that point, like there was all this, like talks of COVID were getting louder and louder and louder, and so I had Meditation for Women, which was my original podcast at the time. That's part of the Women's Meditation Network. And I started creating some coronavirus anxiety meditations for him because he would say, he's like, write me a meditation. Like, I'm super stressed out. Like at that moment, he was saying like, is my event still on? Is it not? Like this event he prepares a year for. So he was hyper stressed out. Obviously, everyone else was hyper stressed out. So I created these 1Z, 2Z type of, release anxiety type of meditations. And during that weekend, he did have Podfest. It was amazing. It ended on a Sunday, I think, and that Monday or Tuesday, the country shut down. So he sort of got this like, whew, okay, we're okay. Let's hope everyone from my event is okay. And
right.
yeah. And what I saw though was immediately after that, and we were in this wave too, my download numbers skyrocketed. Not only because they were searching for some of those keywords, coronavirus, anxiety, things like that, but because people in general, we're really looking and actively seeking out meditation as a way to calm down, to get out of the crazy stuff that was happening, and to really be able to help them find some sense of peace through it. So, there we are in quarantine. We have two little ones. They were, oh my gosh, 1 and 3 at the time. So very little. And all I knew from these numbers was I need to do more. Like, I don't know how, but I need to do more. I need to keep producing meditations. I need to put everything out there. And I'm a writer. So for me, these are always like poems that I'm writing that are cathartic for me and whatever I am feeling, in a way that make them very universal. And so I was feeling stressed. I was feeling the pull. I was feeling fear. I was actively trying to manage my thoughts to try and not get terrified by everything that was out there. So like I was in the thick of it, writing these meditations that were very descriptive of that, and therefore I think really landed with a lot of others who were seeking them. So I can still remember this. My podcast at that point in March hit 100,000 downloads, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is it's amazing in so many ways. I mean, sad that, the world is going through this, but also incredibly fulfilling. Like, wow, what I do is providing something that's really helping people. And I can see that. So a couple of things that we were very proactive about is, when it comes to life and business, is we are really proactive about trying to create our own little world of truth, if you will. Not being ignorant to what was going out in the world, but being very clear that we wanted to create what was for us. And I saw, as far as the podcast and the business goes, like this is a massive opportunity to put more and more light out into the world. And so how do I step up there? How do I actually do more when everyone else is pulling back and really crouching down? And it's okay that they're doing that. But I feel called to not do that. I feel really called to do more, to put more light out, and to expand the business that can do that. So, we were really mindful of what we were doing with our family, the norms we were creating with our family. When everyone else had, locked doors and shut in, we were out at the state parks every single morning. No one was there, and we were just out in nature with our kids, like very my kids didn't even know the word COVID until like last year, if that. And it's only because my little one was now at public schools to start hearing those things, right? So they didn't even know COVID. Anyway, so there was a lot of intentionality on how we decided to sort of bubble our family in and live our norm, live our life of dreaming and possibility, and everything's great, and we're in nature, and how awesome is this, right? And with the business, I was very clear, and I'm including my husband in this because he's a really big part of my business. We were very, very clear that this was a massive opportunity, to bring more light. And so what that looked like and what it has turned into is not just that one podcast, but
Right.
pretty soon I launched sleep meditation for women. And then after that, morning meditation for women. And then after that, sleep sounds, ambient sounds, water nature sounds, daily affirmations, meditation for women. And the most recent one is sleep meditation for women, 3 hours. So here I am with 8 podcasts, these, 2.5 years later, and I'm not stopping. I am just at the beginning. Those 100,000 downloads in, March of 2020 have now turned into 4 million downloads a month on
Oh my
average.
gosh, that's so
And
amazing.
and for me, that means so many women are receiving these and searching for these and consuming these in a way that really make a difference in their lives. And that's what I continue to hear from listeners.
And I feel the same. I tried to focus on what was not canceled and how I could work with what I do have instead of worrying about what I don't have, and what the needs of my community of women were. They needed
Yeah.
to feel connected, and I tried to provide that even when I had to shut the gym for 3 months, and
Yeah.
it made the difference. And I just believe that God provides us water in the desert, and that we also have to do some of the work, though. Like, we have to go looking, we have to open our
You have to show
eyes.
up. Yes.
We have to look for the good, even when in the bad, even in the midst of your worst circumstances. I think you can find the good, and you can find the lesson. And I just think whatever, I think having all the crazy injuries I had before the pandemic, for like 3.5 years, I had some
Mm.
pretty horrific things because I wasn't paying attention. And I finally surrendered on the third injury to, okay, God, what is it I need to know? What is it I need to learn? What am I not listening to? I surrender. And I really came into my purpose in my own during the worst of times, when I was flat on my back and I could not even teach a fitness class. Um, that's when I found my greatest purpose, which is
Yeah.
serving women, because I never want any woman out there to go through what I did. And I never want a woman out there to feel alone and unsupported. So that is what Sisterhood of Sweat is all about.
Yeah.
And I just think that whatever you're going through now could lead you to your greatest purpose. It could be preparing you for what you're going to do next. So if you can, even in the darkest of days, look for the good, I think like it's a huge catalyst in moving you towards that. And I love what you did with the creating the meditations. I think I listened to them pretty much daily sometimes when I
Yeah.
felt stressed during the pandemic. I fell asleep to them sometimes. And
Yeah.
so I can attest to that, the good that you created and the need for that. And see, you didn't find that during the Mary Poppins days and the
No, it's so funny if you in when the world, generally speaking, was very dark, I same as you, like I feel like that it was my time. Like this is my time. And I feel like a lot of folks who are here to do good in the world and are actively pursuing that, I feel like that's when in those kind of worldly dark moments, we sort of like really are like, okay, everything that we have gone through has prepared us for now. Let's go, you know? And when I talk about that, everything that has prepared us, I have a history, like I've been podcasting since 2014. I've been an entrepreneur since 2009. I have been doing work with women and for women in some way since I was young. So like, and not all of those, while the world might have looked fine, my world was really dark in seasons of that. And because I had many really low moments or really tough
yeah,
times trying to figure it
right.
out. So it's fascinating to me sort of sitting here right now and I can sort of have this like, wow, like look at everything that is like all these
Yeah.
markers of success, right? Uh and and yes, this many people being reached, this many people, downloads, like this is what the business is. That's awesome. And what's more important to me, and really what success is to me, is this level of fulfillment. Like I feel
Oh,
so full and
oh yeah.
saturated with
Hmm.
enjoyment for this
Yes.
journey, the highs, the lows, everything. And there have been seasons of my life where I have not had that, and I've been more seeking. And so it's in this moment now that I can look back and be like, oh, that taught me this, which is now helpful here, because
Oh yeah.
if I hadn't known that, this would not be working right now. So, my success at this point, or at least, the snapshot of my network in particular, is definitely an accumulation of the lessons, accumulation of all the highs, all the lows, and the lessons learned in that. And, you've ever heard the term like, it took 12 years to be an overnight success, right? Like
Yeah.
that's very much how I feel. Like I have some people sort of finding me now and like, oh my gosh. I was like, oh my God, if you would have been here 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it would have looked very different. But it's
Hmm.
all been a part of the story.
And so, like, I so relate to what you're saying, and I'm sure that the listeners can relate to that. And when you look back over your life, some of the worst things actually end up being the best things. And some of the things that I can think back to now, it's like they all came together. And in my business, it's like all of a sudden, click,
Yes.
everything just snapped into place.
Yeah.
Um, I started cooking with gas, like everything that I have learned over the years since I was 21 to 60. I'm coming into my greatest dreams. And it isn't about your age, it's about continuing to follow the path of your purpose and your mission and your joy and your why. And each dot connects to the next, and each step gets you to the top of that mountain. Hang on, you guys, I just got a little too excited and pulled my headphones out.
It
But
happened.
that's why earlier your volume went down. It's because I did that one other time. But like when you're looking at that, I can say now, where I used to slave away 60 hours a week for somebody else, and it was prime retail space, that's where my business is. And um just grateful that God has richly blessed me during the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all part of the evolution, right? And it's a matter of, even in the low moments, because believe me, definitely in these past couple of years, there are really low moments.
Yeah.
They don't stick around too long,
Right.
but there are low moments, and I'm really sort of surrendered to the fact that it's keeping me humble, and it's
Mm,
keeping me really in tune with being conscious and deliberate about the choices I'm making along the
yeah.
way, because that becomes like that bumper, like, oh, don't want that. Much like you were saying, like, here I am flat on my back in the worst kind of physical, experience. And that's when all this stuff sort of hits. And
Mhm.
it's because that pain has become so much that you have this like internal, like, aha, like, I don't want this. And so something has to change. And so what is it? And so you go on this quest to really uncover what what is it? Who am I? What do I want? What do I need? And how can I create it? And I won't have anything less, because I don't want that pain.
And I love how you're serving women so richly from home,
Yeah.
uh doing, with your children, your family, doing your 8 podcasts. And I think that provides hope for other women out there to see that the things and the ideas that you have, sometimes we dismiss them thinking, who would want that, that's too small, I don't know if that would work, um somebody else is doing it, um like all the things that go through your mind.
Yeah.
But if you're having ideas, I think you've got to capture them and go with them and see where they might lead, because I mean, it all starts with just like how did you get the idea for the meditation?
Oh, that's a good story. It was January of 2018. I was up at a CEO retreat, kind of putting the final pieces on my annual plan for business. And I was very clear on this. These are the steps that I would take to triple business that year. And back then my business was Biz Women Rock, and it was a very heavy, like I was a business strategist. People hired me as a coach, right? They hired me to be part of my masterminds, to be in my programs. Like, it was a very different business model. And I loved it, and I wanted it to grow big time. So I had all these big plans. So in one of the sessions, I was sort of brain dumping on all of these different ways that I could really maximize the podcast that I had at that time. And one of the ideas that I had was, I'm going to create meditations for women. That'd be really cool. Like, that'd be really fun. And I should note that I do not have guided meditation experience. I am not formally trained in any particular school of meditation. I don't have any degrees, or like, I have no credentials to back up me as a meditation guide. But I've been listening and practicing meditation since I was 18, 19 years old. I'm 43 now. So, I have danced with it a long time, and it's been a really beautiful tool for me to be mindful and to bring me calm, get to know myself better. And so I just was like, that'd be really cool to do that. And as in that first quarter, I sort of just went gung ho with the growth of the business. I did nothing with that meditation idea because it really was an outlier. It didn't really fit in with the business model. And I had come home and mentioned it to my husband, who loved the idea. And of course, then I, of course, did nothing about it because he loved it. So whatever, I'm definitely not doing anything with it. And then fast forward, it's April of 2018. Business is on schedule to, like, I'm about to roll out some big programs. The programs that I did roll out in Q1 are like on it. They're going well. And I'm pregnant. I find out I'm pregnant with our second daughter. And if any of you ladies have ever been pregnant before, something in your life, all of a sudden, for no reason, is not okay, or you need to change it, or whatever. Like, it just, something shifts.
Yeah,
So I literally
totally.
woke up one day. I was like, I don't want this business anymore, which was a very terrifying thought, because like, it was a very profitable business for me. It supported our family. Like, that was very scary. So I just kind of went quiet for probably 2 months or so. And in that quiet, I kind of did all the things that I, was scheduled to do. I sort of did bare minimum work, kept my clients, but I didn't launch anything. And I wasn't like heavy on social media the way that I had been. So in that time, I was going on a lot of walks, and, one day venting about, I could make this work. I can bring this business over here, and I could make it really big, and I could make it work with an infant and a toddler, and I'm superwoman, right? And the next day I was like, I'm done with business. I don't want to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to raise my
Oh my
kids, right?
gosh, I
That's
hear
it.
you. Yeah.
So I was like all over the board.
Right,
And
right.
one day in May of 2019, I remember it very clearly. I'm walking, I've finished venting, and my husband just turns to me and says, "What about that meditation idea?" And I say, "What about it?" He says, "What about it?" And
Ah,
that was the seed that allowed me to open up my mind to what's possible here. What could this thing be? And it became very clear to me right away that there were two guiding principles that were telling me, yes, 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 you have to do this. One was, makes perfect sense to me as my clear evolution of work with women in this world. So I could go from helping women at more of a business and entrepreneurial level, and I could cast a wider net and really reach women on a very deep subconscious level, on a personal level, and really enact change within their souls. And that makes a big difference in the world, times X amount of millions and millions of women, right? So that was one. And the other thing that I knew was that I could create a business model very differently that would give me time freedom, and that would support financial freedom, like real financial freedom. Real, like, in my other business, I had to show up in order to make money. And it was a great business model, but I could foresee a business model where I didn't need to show up live in order for me to make money. I could create these very evergreen products that I could deploy everywhere and could make money while I'm sleeping. Literally, like all that nice funny stuff that you talk about all the time and everyone says is so sexy. Like I could create that here. And so that was enough for me to be like, okay, what could this be? Like, what is this all about? And very quickly, I'm a quick implementer. So, you're talking about like take action on these ideas. So I had this idea and I immediately sort of was like, okay, what could this be? I knew right away it was a network because I knew it was larger than one podcast, but it was very overwhelming for me at the time to think of so many. So I was like, let me start with one and just go. And so I just started writing these scripts. I started showing up to the mic and I launched it in the summer, July 23rd of 2018. By October, it had gotten 5,000 downloads for the month, which was the same that my Biz Women Rock podcast got. And I was like, I think I'm onto something here.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. So I just kept going with it. I did one episode a week. That's all I could handle because in that time, I gave birth to my daughter. I was in the, mom phase of like just trying to keep my wits about me and trying to pump out one episode per month or per week while I was, still had my newborn and my toddler. And I still had the Biz Women Rock business at that time. And so I had pared it really far back to where I was at that point just working with a handful of clients and that was it. I was still keeping the podcast alive. And I did that for a year and a half. I just kept on, doing meditations on the one podcast. Year and a half passes. I finally say goodbye to all my clients, finally say goodbye to that business. And it's January 2020 when I'm like, great, let's go. I'm in 100%. My kid's a year old now. I feel like I've got my brain back a little bit, like go. And then COVID hit,
Oh my
which is
gosh.
which is why it was just really interesting and timely that I was, the universe is so beautiful in timing where it worked because I was ready. I was ready and I was free of everything to now move and like produce the way that to the capacity that I wanted to and I felt called to do.
Oh my gosh, that parallels my story so much. I'll have to come on your show sometime and just tell my whole journey from the expansion of 3 gyms. And I just think like it was kind of like it worked out perfectly because now the world is open, then I'm in my bigger space. It took a while to put it all together. And it took a while for me to recognize, yes, I'm here in the calling and to take the leap and have the faith. And, I just believe God's timing is perfect. And we can't always see how everything connects until you're kind of in that big picture and you just keep going to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And I love that, we all have gifts and a lot of the times we're working too hard. We think it has to be such hard work. But when we really follow the true gift that we have, it's, I don't want to say, well, I do want to say effortless in a way. Um, it's like what I told a couple weeks ago on my podcast. I was just going through this whole thing about your gifts will make room for you and that your gifts are something that are so close to you, you don't recognize them. And I was on the internet and I was watching my friend who's 75-year-old bodybuilder. I got to shout her out, Ruby Carter
Yeah.
Pikes. And all she was doing, I was like, oh, her social media is really pretty good. And I was like, oh, what is she doing? And she was doing exercise videos. And I'm like, see, to me, that's like me just brushing my teeth, drinking water, eating, breathing. And I didn't even think of it, which is
Yeah.
odd as the fitness person. And I'm like, okay, let me take a crack at it. So I just
Right.
decided right then and there, come as you are party. And so like, I just went for it with a half of a split reel doing, I think it was maybe burpees with weights and jumping
Love
up on a
it.
box and
Yeah.
whatever, some kind of crazy burpee combo. And within, like, I mean, just maybe a minute or two, my views shot up to 3,500.
Oh my gosh, I
And
love
that
it.
right there was like such a lesson and an eye opener to that we're working too hard most of the time, like harder than we need to. If we would just hone in on these ideas and these gifts that we have,
Yeah.
that's where your strength lies.
Mhm. I agree with you, and I think, to me, that's alignment. And alignment starts by knowing yourself and by being willing to get quiet with yourself, which is very we fight that. I fight that. I mean, all of it. As much as I believe in meditation and I practice meditation, I fight it. I don't want to be quiet with myself um because there's so much to do. Like I need to keep moving. And so when we practice, however you end up doing meditation, because there's a gazillion types of meditation and ways to meditate and things that most people wouldn't consider meditation, like going out and walking in nature and just taking 5 deep breaths while you're in the shower. Like that to me, those to me are meditations. And so, uh, you know, uh, that's where alignment starts, when you can really open up a space to hear yourself apart from the noise, and you get clear on the voice inside. And when you do that and you start listening to her, you can choose, which I hope that you do. You can choose to take action on what you hear, no matter how scary it is, no matter how small the action is. And the more action you take on that, the stronger that muscle gets, the more you trust that voice to guide you. And the more you're able to sort of like guide yourself through this life. Um, and I just think that that's alignment. And that's why, those are the moments where you get really clear and lean into your gifts without it being about ego. It's not about me showing off my gifts. It's about me feeling fulfilled doing things that I am really good at. And, for me, I think that was that has been a unique identifier within my journey, in that I don't believe my meditations are like everyone else's. I think they're pretty darn unique. And because I think a gift of mine is my writing, and writing in a way that really communicates a very universal feeling or experience, and allowing that to be a very poetic experience. I just happen to wrap it in this thing called a meditation. I just happen to produce it with beautiful music and sound effects, so it really lands, and it's an experience.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a differentiator. I think that that's part of one of the things that sets me apart from other meditation podcasts specifically, and other meditations in general. And I think the fact that I am, just who I am, and I'm not, I'm not a monk. I haven't, I'm not, haven't been through school of meditation. I don't identify with a particular school of meditation. And I think that generality makes me very approachable and very universal. And I think that's a differentiator. So, it's that time with myself allows me to really lean into and practice leaning into these gifts that ultimately I'm doing for me, because it feels really good. Like the writing for me, for these scripts, for these meditations, is the hardest part of everything that I do. They're also the most fulfilling. I feel so freaking good after
Yeah,
I'm
I
done with
love that.
one and I
Hmm.
read the script,
Yep.
and I'm like, I get goosebumps, like, yes, okay, good. And then my producer, who's not just a producer, he's a sound engineer. Like the dude has done movies on, like, when to have the dramatic entrance and exits and all that sort of stuff. So like he's making these beautiful, he and I are collaborating on these beautiful pieces of art, is really what I consider them.
I love that.
And and so I'll listen to these, because I QC, I do quality control over every single episode that goes out. And and I'm listening to these going, oh my God, yes, like that. So for me, that's the leaning into my gift. And that's the gift that I get back from it, going, that is exactly what I want to the process
Yes,
was
yes, yes.
fulfilling, right?
Yes.
And then there's this extra benefit called other people. I get to share that with the world. And I
Yes.
think that alignment ends up communicating to the universe, you got it, girl, you're on. We're going
Hmm.
to open things up for you. not
Right.
because you deserve it, not because it's your time, but because you're aligned and you're doing it for the sole purpose of the practice of that fulfillment of that process. And it's fun, right? Like, I'm sure you get plenty of people going like, who just don't like to work out. Like, oh gosh, like, I don't like it and give me the program and whatever. But like, you show up to work out because you love it and you love the process. You love it on days that you don't love it. Like, it's part, you just said, like, I do it like I'm brushing my teeth and, like drinking water. Same for me. I'm an athlete too. Like those things that I will never not work out. I will never not, do my best to get sweaty. And for me, like that's it. And that's the juice of the gift. And I feel like when you give from that place, the universe responds big time in whatever way that might look like.
And I think it's the authenticity. Um, it's getting out of your own way, because I really felt called to be doing my own solo rounds, but I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because it was a little bit scary, because you're just putting yourself out there. But my greatest gift really is inspiring and motivating. And so I think sometimes those things can be surrounded with a little imposter syndrome, a little fear. But once you get out of your own way and you go after those heartfelt dreams and those big ideas, and they become bigger, because like when I was writing this article with Authority Magazine, they were interviewing me and they're asking me questions and I'd write back. I remember they put me on the side of a building. We're talking about imposter syndrome, okay?
Ooh.
So I am like, oh my gosh, like I thought I overcame imposter syndrome, but you're putting me on the side of this building and people are asking me, what building is that? And I'm like, oh my gosh, like they just did that in the picture. But
Yeah.
then it was like this whole process clicked within me. And it was, we're thinking too small. Why can't we see
Yes.
ourselves on the side of a building? And
Yeah.
then
Oh,
it was right. And then after that, I just started stepping into my wildest dreams, because then it was billboards on Times Square. For 3 straight weeks, I was on 2 different billboards. And then it was the cover of a magazine and a whole issue with a huge article, which, made me visible so that I could get my message out
yeah.
there to more women. And then I just looked in my inbox and I had another magazine wanting to interview. So like, it is this thing where I had intentions. I wanted to grow my network and my podcast and my community to reach millions of women. And I never thought like that I would be, you're at 4 million, I'm at 500,000. But I never
That's
thought
amazing. Yeah.
that I
And
would reach that many people.
I I I'm giving like high praise in the video here that we're doing that you can't see right now, but like everything that you're saying is so true. And I think that it is I'm just a believer, everything in life, but especially because we're talking about business, is just a mind game. And it's a matter of opening up your mind to even more possibilities and to say, I want to choose to dream and I want to choose to dream bigger. And, what else could I do? And I have, if you would have asked me 4 years ago, 3 years ago, even 2 years ago, if I would be at this level, that milestone being like, 4 million downloads a month, right? If you would have asked me, I'd have been like, no way, because I have a limiting belief that says, in order to grow more, I need to do more. And I'm not willing to do that because I need to be mom. Right. And so there's this constant like battle of the limiting beliefs going on inside my head. And so I just was at this point again recently where I found myself like over the summer and into this early fall, I found myself getting really down because I felt so overwhelmed by everything because everything is growing. I'm an operator, so I'm very much in it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I hired on my a full-time operations manager. Like I was doing all the right things to delegate and grow, but here was not right. My head
Yeah.
was not right because I kept thinking I'm so overwhelmed. there's too much to do. I can't keep up with it all. Like those were my thoughts. And
Right.
I just had the realization, you know, a couple months ago, I was like, well, wait a minute. This is a this has nothing to do with logistics or operations or anything. It has everything to do with what I'm available to see in my mind. So let's
Mm-hmm.
start
Yep.
unraveling this a little bit. And so I'm very proud of the snapshot of life and numbers right now. And I want more, not to fulfill my ego, but to really continue deeply living in purpose. And for me, that looks like millions and millions and millions of women just like you. So so now my mind starts streaming up. Okay, where could we be? How many more women could we have? How many more podcasts can we have? There again, if you would have asked me 4 years ago, could I have 8 podcasts? I would have thought you were nuts, and there's no way I could manage that. Now, you want to talk about, like, I absolutely foresee in the very near future, like I'm a network of 32 podcasts that, and things are rolling along. And mostly in-house created podcasts. Like that's there. It's a very real thing for me. So, but I had to get out of that, out of that negative self-talk and those limiting beliefs being the dominant voice in my head, and had to shift into everything that I create, everything that I see around me starts in my mind. So, what thoughts do I want to have that will allow other possibilities to open up, and so I could see more? And so a very practical thing that I do is, on a very regular basis, at the very least once a week for our date night, my husband and I are constantly in this space of dreaming. We call it future casting.
Mm-hmm.
And so we will
Oh,
just talk about,
I believe in that. And I believe
yes,
you do it not only with your intention, but your words.
absolutely. And so it was so beautiful, like, because just in talking ideas out, I mean, we're talking family, we're talking, vacations, we're talking, most important to us is family time. And we're both deeply embedded in entrepreneurship, and everything that it is very much a part of our lives. And so we're talking our goals, our dreams, these businesses that we have and what that means and what it could be, and da 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 da. And I'm in disbelief most of the times that, like, new ideas came out. Oh yeah, that's totally possible. Oh yeah, of course. I can't tell you how many times on that particular beach that we walked on, like, oh yeah, do you remember when we had the idea about podcast number 3 here? Oh yeah, that was great. And boom, it happened, right? So we need that space for dreaming, and we need the people, the trusted people around us for dreaming. You can't dream with non-dreamers, and that's okay. They don't have to be your caliber of dreamer, but you need to find people and be around people who are on the same vibration of dreaming and possibility, and they're not going to tell you no, you can't. So when you do hear that, just uh, you know quietly thank them. Oh, thanks so much. And just go get around people who will enhance that dreaming and give you even more ideas and even more space to dream, and and not shut it down, and tell you, yes, of course you can. That's one of the biggest reasons I fell in love with my husband. He's a dreamer. And I remember telling people in my, like, I was 20 years old in college, and it was my first like feminist class, and gender and communication class. I remember coming home one day just on fire, and I told someone, I was like, I am going to impact millions of women over the world, because if I can make a difference with women on such a beautiful, intimate level, then they show up differently for their kids, right? They show up differently for their communities. Like, that's the ground level of change, I believe.
Yeah.
So, and that person that I was telling to completely shut me down. And it's not their fault. Like, they basically were like, you're crazy, Katie. Like, that's too big of a thing. That's pretty much what he said. Like, that's too big. I feel sorry for you, because you're gonna be really disappointed when that doesn't happen. And I shut myself down for years, decade or so. And it wasn't really until I met my husband that I was like, oh, and he immediately was interested on this little dream I had tucked away, and he immediately wanted to know more. And he immediately was brainstorming on how and what we could do. And, da, 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 and that has not stopped. That has only accelerated in our relationship. So it is incredibly special. And I think it's something that every person needs to have.
That was beautiful. Now, nobody really knows what they're fully capable of Because I still remember thinking when this friend said to me, and the building is right across the street, mind you, from where I am now, about her place. I should rent this, and I was thinking at the time, oh, no way I could ever do that. And just to see where I am now and doing more than that, and God has provided more than I ever dreamed. And you are capable of more than you're doing right now. Most of us are playing small because once you start stepping into those dreams, you realize, oh, this is what I was born to do. This is what I was meant to do. This is making me come fully alive, and I am serving millions of people because of not sitting back, afraid to step out in faith and believe that I have something worth offering. And you were talking about growing. So then what happens? You do the dream, you start to grow, and it's overwhelming because
Oh,
everything
it's
is
painful.
growing at once, and you're
Yeah.
like, ah. But
Yeah.
then you learn, oh, okay, intentionally, I have to have people on my team. I have to set boundaries. I have to show people how they need to show up with me. I have to really organize my time to make the most impact. And you get very intentional. And then you start taking what you're doing, I think, to a whole new level, because you're realizing, not to take ourselves too seriously, but you're realizing you only have so much time, and you
Yeah.
want to spend that fully with intention, and you start taking it more seriously, and you show up differently, and then everybody around you shows up differently, and it's just this whole thing. So when you get to that period, just realize it's just the next level of your dream. And to get where you're really going, then you have to figure out, okay, do I want to stay like TD Jakes says? I watched a clip recently. I could stay down and stay dead, you know, like down, uh, where maybe I've fallen, when I've made a mistake or screwed up on something in my dream. Um, I could, when you get up, sometimes you feel like there's a target on your back if you're really, putting yourself out there and in a big way. You could just stay down, and you could stay stuck in this overwhelm. Or you could say, like Marie Forleo says, everything is figure outable, and this is just a part of growth, and I'm going to figure it out because my dream matters too much.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can't find a better way to say that. It's beautiful. And you just have to keep getting up and keep trying. I mean, there's no end result. There's no end place to go. Like, it's just, what's the next milestone that I want, that I feel called to go towards? And then what's the next milestone? Like, I'm very clear that the Women's Meditation Network, I'm pretty clear that, 10, 20 years from now, this isn't what I'm going to be doing. But damn, am I in it right now? And I want to be in it right now. And I don't think that my life ends and that I've sort of rang the bell once I get to X place. But I use those goals as a way to move forward, and as guideposts to really what they are. All these dreams and aspirations that we have. I think a very healthy way of looking at them is that they are reasons for us to step into our best selves, which requires us to get very messy and, takes,
Yes.
shed skin
Oh, yes.
and get to know ourselves. You've heard the term, like, entrepreneurship is the best self-help program that you could take. Motherhood is too. And I think that it takes a lot to live an intentional life, to live a life that you script, not one that is scripted for you. And I don't many of us have been there before, whether much of our lives or during seasons of our lives, where we're just sort of doing what we think we should be doing, right? We're checking off the list, go to college, get married, have babies, do the career, like all of that stuff.
Right.
And so
Right. What
when
we
we
think we
deviate,
should be doing.
yeah, and it's not that people are, I mean, sometimes it is, people are telling us that that's what we need to do. But a lot of times, like it's us, like, oh, yeah, of course, that's what I should do. Right. Because we're just not thinking beyond that. And then when you start thinking beyond that and you start questioning, is this what I want versus can I do something else? It takes a lot of bravery to really move out of that and get out of that script. And you'll hear this every time you hear somebody talk about, I left my corporate job, right? Or I left my full-time job to go do A, B, and C. There's usually a lot of backlash, a lot of people who have opinions about that. Most of those opinions are like, are you crazy? My goodness. I mean, when I went through my entrepreneurial shift, when I quit my job and started, having a business, I had a whole group of friends at the time who were lovely human beings, big, big hearts. I had been friends with them for a long time, and they were corporate gals. And I only say that because they could not comprehend what I was doing. So I was giving up my 401k. I was giving up my health benefits. I only had 30 grand in the bank to figure this out. Are you kidding me, Katie? What are you doing? And so every single one of them, in a very nice and loving way, said, great, give this 6 months. And then if you're not where you need to be, go back to get a job. Right. And it didn't take long for us to separate. It didn't take long for us to really recognize, like, I couldn't have that around. I was at such a nubile phase of this entrepreneurial journey, very impressionable, very vulnerable, and I couldn't have that around. And so my point in saying all of this is, should you dare to live into your dreams? First of all, I don't think it's brave. I think it's what we are all here meant to do. I think
Yeah.
we get
Right.
stuck in this net of here's the script that you're handed, when you're born. So should you now dare to escape that net and say, no, I'm going to do what I'm here to do? You can expect ugly, you can expect backlash, you can expect really tough times, because it's a muscle you need to build. The failing, the falling on your face, the, oh my gosh, I don't have enough money to pay mortgage next month. Like, I have been there, and I have learned something in every single one of those phases. And still, I'm 43 years old. I quit my day job 13 plus years ago, and I still have to tell my parents what I do and how I do it. And that's okay. Like, what we do is very different, and it's not your normal job. And so I still have to let them know I'm okay. I'm okay. And I'm doing this. The operations manager I was just talking about, it happens to be my sister. And I would have hired her, whether she were my sister or not. She's that good. Just so happens she's my sister, which is pretty cool. So of course my mom was like, Valerie, what are you doing quitting your job to go with your sister? And da 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 da. And, my sister, thankfully, is sort of at the beginning of her journey of like, I'm going to follow what I feel called to do instead of doing what I feel like I'm told to do. And so, so we like had to have the family meeting about like, hey, Katie actually has a stable thing. Everything's okay. She's going to be okay. Well, I actually have a legit business. And here we are 13 years into this journey, but it's been because every moment of this journey, I am very conscious of making decisions that allow me to be aligned, allow me to really be my best in some way, even if it's in the worst moments. And because I'm very, very, very unwilling to be unhappy. I have a very low tolerance for unhappiness.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm going in a direction that I am just not happy, like, ooh, I'll stomach it for a while in order to get to that pain point, like you were talking about, to then boom, create anew. And I've had many variations and iterations of, I want to bring light to millions of women in the world. I've had very many. This is just my most recent one. And again, I feel like it's been in the making this whole time,
And I love everything that you said. And I think that a lot of the time we have to get out of our own way of what we have to let go of who we thought we were to become who we really are. and to do what you were born to do. And it's so different doing what you're truly like created for versus just, I don't know, clocking in the 9 to 5 and status quo and just doing, being who we think others want us to be, but being who you really are is where the magic is at. So I have really so enjoyed this conversation. I hate to cut it short, but I
I
literally
know.
am going to have to get out the
So good.
door. So I want you to tell everybody about your gratitude um, meditation and all that you have
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah, so we're actually doing a whole gratitude giveaway during the month of November. So as you're listening to this, you can enter to win one of 10 giant swag bags that we're giving away. Each one is worth about $300 or more.
Oh,
And
cool.
they're filled with my favorite like health and wellness products. So Just Thrive is giving like probiotics and Just Calm. Organifi is
Oh,
giving
I use
green,
all that.
yeah, green, gold, and pure powder, energy bits. The Global Healing Center is giving away detoxidine, B12, quercetin, oxy powder, tons of stuff. Veg News Magazine is you'll get a free Veg News Magazine in there. Athletic Greens will be in there. Tons and tons of awesome stuff, basically to just say thanks for being a listener. And it's a way for me to show my gratitude. So there's 3 easy steps for you to enter. All you have to do is go subscribe or follow any one of my 8 podcasts, and all you have to do is just go whatever podcast player you're listening to now, just go type in meditation for women, and all of them will come up, and you just go choose one that looks good to you, go subscribe and go take a listen to an episode. Tell me what you think. And then step 2 is go to Apple Podcasts, give me an honest rating and review. Tell me how you like the episode. And step 3 is then go share it on Instagram or Facebook. Go, take a screenshot of that review, go share it, Instagram, Facebook, tag Women's Meditation Network, and boom, you are entered into the drawing. And we are taking entries all month long. And then in December, we will announce the winners.
I love that so much. And I'll make sure to put that in the show notes. And I just want to say real quick before we go that don't you guys just love Katie, and don't you feel drawn to her energy that is just flowing off of her, and she's glowing because that's what happens when you follow something that lights you up inside. And that is why you want to kind of grab a hold of everything we said today, because it really is the magnet that attracts all good things.
So true. Linda, you are a beauty. Thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. And I love you, Katie. You're the best. And I just adore, everything you're doing. And I just wish you continued success with all of these meditation podcasts and just all the things you're doing. I think that it's definitely commendable. And everybody out there, make sure you check out the gratitude giveaway and think about what you're thankful for. We are approaching Thanksgiving. And as always, everyone, keep on keeping on.